Welcome back to the AAI Common Room, where we dive deep into the books that shape our minds and hearts. Today, we're venturing into the windswept moors and shadowed halls of Jane Eyre, an autobiography by Charlotte Brontë. Albert, Isaac, glad to have you both here.
Always a pleasure, Aristo. And Jane Eyre, what a journey, truly. It just grabs you from the first page and doesn't let go.
Grabs you is one way to put it, Albert. I'd say it throttles you a bit, then slowly reveals its complexities. It's certainly persistent.
Persistent, yes. And that's a great way to describe Jane herself. I found myself thinking a lot about the dedication, actually, right at the start, to Thackeray. It sets a really interesting tone, almost an argument before the story even begins. Brontë, or Currer Bell, clearly had something to prove, didn't she?
Absolutely. That preface is a statement. She's not just dedicating it, she's defending it, preempting criticism. The whole conventionality is not morality line, it's so bold. She's basically saying, I know what I'm doing, and if you don't like it, you're probably part of the problem.
It feels less like a dedication and more like a gauntlet thrown down. She's calling out the timorous or carping few who doubt the tendency of such books. It's almost aggressive, setting the stage for a character who will similarly defy expectations.
Exactly. And she praises Thackeray, saying he speaks truth as deep, with a power as prophet-like and as vital. She sees him as a social regenerator. It makes you think about what she believes Jane Eyre is also trying to do, regenerate society, or at least challenge its norms.
I think that's key to understanding the book from the get-go. This isn't just a romance novel. It's a full-on critique of societal structures, of hypocrisy, of the treatment of women and the poor. She's not shy about it at all.
No, she's certainly not. But let's be honest, the story itself starts pretty bleakly. Gateshead Hall, Chapter 1. It's a miserable existence for Jane.
A truly miserable existence. That opening scene, shut away from the family, denied even the simple pleasure of a walk because she's not sociable and childlike. It's so visceral, you immediately feel her isolation.
And then John Reed. Oh, John Reed, the absolute worst. He's not just a bully, he's a symbol of unchecked privilege and cruelty. The way he verbally abuses her, calls her a rat, and then physically attacks her over a book, it's infuriating.
And Mrs. Reed's reaction is even worse in a way. She blames Jane. What a fury to fly at Master John. It's this total blindness to the actual injustice, and instead punishing the victim. That's where the conventionality is not morality really bites.
That's the first real spark of Jane's rebellious spirit, though, isn't it? Her calling John a murderer and a slave driver. It's a child's unfiltered truth, comparing him to Roman emperors she's read about. She articulates the injustice, even if it just gets her sent to the Red Room.
The Red Room. That's such a pivotal scene. It's not just a punishment. It's a psychological torture chamber. The description of it, the oppressive crimson, the stillness, the ghost of Mr. Reed, it's terrifying, especially for a child.
It's where she fully realizes her powerlessness, but also where her internal life really takes over. It's solitary confinement, but it's also where her imagination, fueled by her reading, runs wild. And the fainting fit, or fit as Brontë calls it, is a physical manifestation of that extreme psychological distress.
And it's the catalyst for change, isn't it? That fit and the appearance of Mr. Lloyd, the apothecary. He's the first genuinely kind adult Jane encounters. He asks her questions. He actually listens.
Yes, he's a breath of fresh air. He sees her as a person, not a problem. And it's so important that he's the one who asks her if she wants to go to school. That simple question opens up a whole new world for her, literally and figuratively.
And the conversation with Mr. Lloyd is fascinating because it reveals Jane's pragmatic side. She doesn't want to be poor people, not because she's snobbish, but because she understands it means further degradation, less autonomy. She knows poverty means a lower caste.
I was not heroic enough to purchase liberty at the price of caste. That's a profound statement for a 10-year-old, or at least for the narrator looking back. It shows her awareness of social stratification even then.
It does, but it also shows her longing for something more. She wants to go to school. She's captivated by Bessie's stories of young ladies with accomplishments, paintings, French books. She sees it as an escape, an entrance into a new life.
Which it absolutely is, though Lowood isn't exactly a paradise. Mr. Brocklehurst, who appears to take her to school, is another utterly repulsive character.
Brocklehurst. Oh, he's a piece of work. The personification of hypocrisy. He preaches humility and self-denial while his own children are dressed in silks. That whole exchange where Mrs. Reed basically slanders Jane to him, telling him she has a tendency to deceit, is just heartbreaking.
It's infuriating. And the way he questions her about hell, and she gives that perfectly rational child's answer, I must keep in good health and not die. He twists everything. He even criticizes her for not liking the Psalms, comparing her to his own son who gets 2 gingerbread nuts for liking them. It's a performance of piety.
A performance that Mrs. Reed clearly appreciates. They're 2 peas in a pod, these people, justifying their cruelty with religious rhetoric. Consistency, madam, is the first of Christian duties. It's a consistent dedication to misery and self-aggrandizement.
And Jane immediately understands the impact. She sees herself transformed under Mr. Brocklehurst's eye into an artful, noxious child. She knows her reputation is already ruined before she even arrives. That's a heavy burden for a child to carry.
It's a wonder she doesn't just give up. But that's the fire in Jane, isn't it? She's constantly battling against external forces trying to crush her spirit.
Well, she doesn't give up, but Lowood doesn't exactly nurture her either. It's a bleak, cold, starvation diet sort of place.
The description of Lowood is harrowing. The meager food, the cold, the inadequate clothing, the constant sermons from Mr. Brocklehurst. It's a place designed to mortify in them the worldly sentiment of pride. It's designed to break them.
But then we get Helen Burns. Oh, Helen. She's like Jane's spiritual guide, isn't she? So calm, so patient, so utterly Christian in a way that Brocklehurst could only pretend to be.
Helen is an interesting contrast. Jane's instinct is to fight back against injustice. Helen's is to endure, to forgive, to turn the other cheek. It highlights the different paths a suffering individual might take.
And it's through Helen that Jane learns about the possibility of inner peace, even in suffering. Helen's philosophy of forgiveness, of looking beyond the earthly pains to a heavenly reward, deeply affects Jane. Though Jane never fully adopts it, it broadens her perspective.
When Helen is dying, it's just profoundly sad. That scene in the bed, Jane crawling in with her, it's the first real connection Jane has. And then Helen tells her not to grieve, that she's going to a better place. It's devastating, but also comforting in its own way.
It also serves as a sharp indictment of the Lowood system. Helen dies of typhus, and many other girls too, precisely because of the appalling conditions that Brocklehurst, in his mortification of pride, imposed. It shows the real-world consequences of his hypocrisy.
And it does lead to some reform, doesn't it? The public outcry, the investigation, Brocklehurst being sidelined. It's a moment of justice, albeit one paid for with immense suffering.
Yes, and that's when Miss Temple, another beacon of kindness, gets more power. She's the true antithesis to Brocklehurst. She recognizes Jane's intelligence and spirit.
Miss Temple is good but limited. She can only do so much within the system. But she does allow Jane to flourish, to get an education, to become a teacher herself. That's a significant step.
And Jane spends 8 years at Lowood, 6 as a student, 2 as a teacher. It's a long stretch of her life. It molds her, but it also makes her long for something more. That feeling of restlessness, of needing new sensations, is so palpable.
That moment when she says, "I desired liberty. For liberty I gasped. For liberty I uttered a prayer." It's not just physical freedom. It's a desire for intellectual and emotional freedom too. She wants to see the world, to experience life beyond those narrow walls.
And she places an advertisement. It's so brave, so pragmatic for a young woman with no connections. A bold move for the time.
It truly is. And that's what leads her to Thornfield and to Mr. Rochester. That's where the real meat of the story begins in many ways.
Rochester, the Byronic hero personified. Dark, brooding, mysterious, with a past. He's magnetic, but also deeply flawed.
He's a walking red flag, Albert. Let's be honest. From their first encounter, he's testing her, playing games. He's intrigued, yes, but also manipulative.
He definitely is. Their initial interactions are fascinating, full of quick, witty banter. Jane, for the first time, finds someone who genuinely engages with her intellect, who doesn't dismiss her because of her plainness or her status. He sees her mind.
And he's so taken with her honesty. He's used to flattery and superficiality, and Jane just tells him exactly what she thinks, without fear. It's refreshing for him, and for her, it's exhilarating to finally be truly seen.
But he still keeps secrets, a lot of secrets. And the house itself, Thornfield, has this gothic, unsettling atmosphere. The strange laughter, the fires, the attacks, it's all building towards something ominous.
The presence of Bertha Mason, or rather, the absence of her direct presence, is expertly handled by Brontë. It's this creeping dread, the sense of something profoundly wrong lurking in the shadows. The fire in Rochester's bed, the attack on Richard Mason, it's all so mysterious at first.
And Adele, his ward, she's another interesting character, a symbol of Rochester's past and a sort of innocent foil to the darkness that surrounds him. Jane's relationship with Adele is important because it shows her capacity for tenderness and maternal affection.
Jane's growth as a teacher at Thornfield, how she cares for Adele, how she manages the household duties, it shows her competence and quiet strength. She's not just a passive observer, she's an active participant, even before Rochester makes his intentions clear.
Their love story, if you can call it that, is so unconventional. He tries to make her jealous with Blanche Ingram, playing this elaborate charade. It's almost cruel.
It's absolutely cruel, but it's also a test. He wants to see if her feelings are genuine, if she's truly indifferent to superficial status and wealth. He's testing her integrity, because that's what he values in her. He's deeply insecure, despite his outward bravado.
Or he's just a terrible human being with poor emotional regulation. Let's not romanticize his manipulations too much, Albert. He's deliberately hurtful.
I think it's both, Isaac. He's a product of his time and class, accustomed to getting what he wants, but he also genuinely seeks a connection that goes beyond superficiality. He recognizes in Jane something pure and authentic that he hasn't found elsewhere.
Exactly. And when he finally proposes, after the whole gypsy disguise and the Blanche Ingram charade, it's so passionate, so earnest. He confesses his love, and Jane, for the first time, feels truly desired, truly loved.
And then the wedding day, the big reveal. That's a classic moment in English literature.
A moment that still shocks. The interruption, the lawyer, Mr. Briggs, and Richard Mason revealing that Rochester is already married. It's devastating for Jane.
And the explanation, Bertha Mason, his mad wife, kept hidden in the attic, the mad woman in the attic. It's such an iconic literary trope, and it's right here.
It's a convenient, if brutal, plot device. Rochester tries to justify it, blaming his father, his unhappy marriage, Bertha's madness. He wants Jane to stay, to live with him as his mistress.
Which, given the social context, is an utterly unthinkable proposition for Jane. Her morality, her principles, cannot allow it. She would become exactly what society despises, losing her integrity.
But it's agonizing for her. She loves him so deeply. To walk away from the man she loves, who finally sees and values her, is an immense sacrifice. It's a testament to her strength of character and her adherence to her own moral code.
It's less about a moral code and more about self-preservation. To become his mistress would mean an even deeper degradation than Gateshead, a total loss of standing. It would destroy her.
It's about her sense of self-worth, her spiritual autonomy. She refuses to be a secondary figure, a kept woman. She believes in marriage, in equality within a relationship. And she understands that living with him under those conditions would warp her.
And so she flees. with barely any money, no connections, just walks out into the world. It's a terrifying act of independence.
And she almost starves. It's a harsh reality check. Her principles nearly kill her.
She experiences true destitution, begging for food, sleeping on the moors. It's a complete stripping away of any comfort or social safety net she ever had. It underscores how precarious a woman's position was, especially an independent one.
But then, just when she's at her lowest, she finds the Rivers family, St. John, Diana, and Mary, and they turn out to be her cousins. It's such a remarkable twist of fate, almost too convenient, but it brings her back from the brink.
The discovery of the kinship is certainly convenient, but it provides her with family, a place, and a name. And the inheritance from her Uncle John is a huge game changer. It gives her financial independence, which she immediately shares with her cousins.
That act of sharing the inheritance is so characteristic of Jane. She doesn't hoard it, she distributes it, affirming her connection to this newfound family and ensuring their well-being. It highlights her generosity and her desire for true belonging.
And then St. John Rivers. Oh, St. John. He's the opposite of Rochester in many ways, but equally compelling, and in some ways more dangerous to Jane.
Dangerous because he's so rigid, so zealous. He wants her to marry him not out of love, but out of duty, to be his helpmeet in missionary work in India. He's emotionally cold, utterly controlled by his ambition for God.
He represents a different kind of imprisonment for Jane. Rochester offered her a passionate but morally compromised life. St. John offers her a life of duty, self-sacrifice, and spiritual austerity, but without love or emotional connection. He wants to use her.
And it's a huge temptation for her because it is a path of service, a life with purpose. And he's not an evil man. He's just intensely self-sacrificing and expects the same from her. But her heart cries out for something more.
That moment when she almost says yes, but then hears Rochester's voice calling her name, it's a bit supernatural, isn't it? A bit of a stretch.
It is, but it's also Brontë using that Gothic element to express Jane's profound spiritual and emotional connection to Rochester. It's her subconscious, her deep longing breaking through. It tells her where her true allegiance lies.
And it gives her the courage to defy St. John, to finally say no to a life that would stifle her. She realizes she needs love and mutual respect, not just duty.
So she returns to Thornfield, only to find it burned to the ground, and Rochester is blind and lost a hand. It's a fittingly dramatic conclusion to his dark secrets, and a sort of atonement.
Atonement, yes. He's been humbled, stripped of his pride and his physical prowess. He's no longer the Byronic alpha male. He's dependent. And in that dependency, a more equal footing with Jane is finally possible.
Reader, I married him. That line, it's so simple, so direct, so powerful. It signifies her triumph, her agency. She married him on her own terms, when he was truly free and when she was financially independent and emotionally whole. And he calls her his prop and guide. He's no longer the master. They are partners. It suggests a more balanced relationship than would have been possible before.
I think that's one of the enduring messages of the book, actually. That true love and partnership can only exist when both individuals are independent and equal, both financially and emotionally. Jane doesn't compromise her values for love, and in the end, she gets a deeper, more profound love because of it.
It's revolutionary for its time, really. The idea of a woman insisting on her intellectual and moral equality with a man, especially a man of Rochester's stature, is incredibly progressive.
Agreed. It's a testament to Bronte's genius that she manages to make such a compelling case for female autonomy within a story that, on the surface, is a romance.
Beyond the plot, what themes really stood out to you? For me, it was this constant tension between passion and reason, between individual freedom and societal constraint. Jane is always navigating that.
Yes, the passion versus reason is huge. Jane is passionate, but she learns to control it, to channel it. Her outbursts at Gateshead are untamed, but by the end, she makes choices guided by deep moral conviction, even when her heart aches. It's not a suppression of passion, but a maturation of it.
And the idea of home or belonging. Jane is constantly searching for a place where she is truly loved and accepted for who she is, not tolerated or used. Gateshead rejects her, Lowood contains her, Thornfield offers a false promise, and only with the Rivers and then a humbled Rochester does she truly find a home.
That's a great point, Isaac. Her journey is fundamentally a search for a place where she can be herself, where her identity is not questioned or suppressed. Her lack of family in the beginning is a huge void, which is then filled by the Rivers, providing her with a legitimate social standing she never had.
And the role of nature, the descriptions of the moors, the cold winter days, the changing seasons, they mirror Jane's emotional landscape. When she's feeling desolate, the world outside is bleak. When she finds solace, there's a corresponding beauty. It's almost a character in itself.
I also found the class dynamics to be a consistent theme. Jane is always aware of her place, her caste, the indignities she suffers at Gateshead, the charity of Lowood, her status as a governess at Thornfield. It's all about navigating a rigid social hierarchy. Her eventual inheritance is what finally allows her to transcend some of those limitations.
It's true. The inheritance is more than just money. It's agency. It allows her to make choices not dictated by necessity or dependence. It's a crucial turning point, giving her the power to choose love on her own terms.
And the concept of inward rebellion. Jane might be outwardly quiet and submissive for much of her youth, but her internal monologue is a constant fire. She judges, she questions, she asserts her own truth, even if only to herself. That's her true strength.
That internal fire is what allows her to survive. She might be physically confined, but her mind is always free, always seeking truth and justice. She often struggles with herself about her own wickedness or impudence, but it's always in response to external injustice.
Let's talk about the character of Rochester for a bit more. Is he truly reformed by the end, or is it merely that his circumstances force him into a state where Jane can accept him? Is his love for her genuine, or just a longing for a kind spirit in his reduced state?
I think it's genuine. He's always loved her, but his pride and his secrets prevented him from loving her authentically. Losing his sight, his hand, his home, it strips away all the external trappings that made him feel superior. He can finally see, ironically, when he is blind.
I'm not so sure. It's certainly convenient for the plot that he's incapacitated. It allows Jane to take on the role of caregiver and partner, and for him to accept that. If he were still the Lord of Thornfield, would he have truly changed his manipulative ways? The fire and blindness feel like narrative punishment, a forced change.
That's a fair point, Isaac. Brontë needed to level the playing field. Without that physical and symbolic castration, their union might always have been tainted by his past dominance. His blindness means he relies on her completely, and his vision of her is no longer superficial. He sees her soul.
And Jane doesn't just forgive him, she understands him. She recognizes the suffering he endured, the mistakes he made, and loves him despite, and perhaps because of, his flaws. That's a mature love.
But it's still a relationship where she is the prop and guide, which could be seen as a different kind of burden. She chooses it, yes, but it's not exactly a walk in the park. The idyllic ending feels a little earned, but also a little too neat after all the Gothic turmoil.
I see your point. The happy ever after is certainly conditional. But I think it's significant that the last paragraph reiterates St. John Rivers's unwavering commitment to his mission, even in death. It serves as a stark contrast, reminding us of the path Jane didn't take, the life of joyless Dewey she rejected.
Oh, that's so true. It highlights Jane's ultimate choice for earthly happiness and love over purely spiritual asceticism. She finds her own form of spiritual fulfillment within a loving human relationship.
So she manages to synthesize passion and reason. She keeps her principles, but finds a way to have love, too. It's a remarkable balance she strikes.
And how about the way Brontë writes Jane? The first-person narrative is so intimate. You're always inside Jane's head, privy to her thoughts, her feelings, her judgments. It creates such a strong bond with the reader.
It's incredibly effective. You experience her indignities, her triumphs, her internal struggles right alongside her. It makes her journey so much more impactful because you're constantly seeing the world through her eyes, filtered through her unique perspective.
It also makes her a more reliable narrator in a strange way, because you see her self-doubt, her biases, her internal criticisms. She's not presenting herself as perfect. She's presenting a very human experience.
And her voice is so distinctive. That blend of formal Victorian prose with moments of intense, almost raw emotional outburst. It feels incredibly modern, even today.
I also found myself thinking about the significance of the autobiography subtitle. It's not just a narrative, it's Jane telling her own story, asserting her right to define herself, which is so crucial to her character arc. It's her claiming her voice.
Yes, she's not a passive subject. She's the author of her own life. That's a powerful statement, especially for a female protagonist in the 19th century.
Let's delve a bit deeper into the Gothic elements. Beyond Bertha, what role do you think they play? The Red Room, the supernatural warnings, the fires. Are they just atmosphere, or do they serve a deeper symbolic purpose?
Oh, they're definitely symbolic. The Red Room is not just scary. It's a representation of Jane's confinement, her emotional suppression, and the ghosts of her past that haunt her. It's the physical manifestation of her psychological torment.
And the fires, Thornfield burning down, Rochester's bed catching fire, it's always linked to Bertha, to the uncontrolled passion and destructive secrets he harbors. Fire as a symbol of purification and destruction.
It's the passion unleashed, isn't it? The repressed, dangerous desires manifesting. Bertha is the embodiment of everything Rochester tried to hide, and her actions set literally everything ablaze, forcing a radical change.
And the supernatural elements, like Rochester's voice calling to Jane across the moors, or the ghostly figures Jane imagines in the Red Room, they speak to a heightened emotional reality. It's not necessarily literally a ghost, but it's the profound impact of those experiences on her psyche, her preternatural voice that might comfort me.
It plays into the romantic sensibilities of the era, but Brontë uses it to amplify Jane's internal state. It's her overwhelming emotions that make these external events feel so charged, so significant. It's less about actual ghosts and more about psychological haunting.
And the descriptions of nature, as Albert mentioned earlier, also have a Gothic feel at times. The drear November day, the storm-beat shrub, the ceaseless rain. It's not just pretty scenery, it's a reflection of Jane's inner turmoil, emphasizing her isolation and despair.
And the language itself can be quite Gothic, too. The intensity of feeling, the dramatic descriptions. "My heart was in insurrection," she says in the Red Room. That's not everyday language, but it perfectly captures her desperate state.
It definitely adds to the sense of elevated emotion. It pulls you into Jane's subjective experience, making her struggles feel monumental.
So, if we were to distill it down, what do you think is Jane Eyre's core strength as a character? What makes her so enduring?
Her absolute authenticity. She refuses to compromise who she is, even when it means immense suffering. She's principled, intelligent, and deeply feeling, and she demands to be recognized for those qualities, not for her looks or her status.
Her resilience. She gets knocked down again and again, by the Reeds, by Brocklehurst, by Rochester's deceit, but she always gets back up. She adapts, she learns, but she never breaks.
I'd agree with both of those, and I'd add her unwavering moral compass, which she develops through incredible adversity. It's not a rigid, predefined morality, but one forged in the fires of injustice and self-discovery. She questions, she analyzes, she makes tough choices that define her integrity.
It's why she remains such a compelling figure. She's not perfect, she makes mistakes, she has her own flaws and passions, but she strives for an honorable and fulfilling life on her own terms.
And she succeeds, which is the really satisfying part. She gets her independence, her family, her true love, and she does it without sacrificing who she fundamentally is.
This book has sparked so much discussion over the years, from its feminism to its religious themes to its Gothic romance. What do you think is the most surprising takeaway for a modern reader?
I think it's how radical it still feels. Even today, the idea of a woman saying, "I am not a bird, and no net ensnares me. I am a free human being with an independent will," still resonates with such power. It reminds us that the struggle for equality and autonomy is ongoing.
For me, it's the brutal honesty of her childhood experiences. We often romanticize historical narratives, but Brontë doesn't shy away from depicting real cruelty, neglect, and psychological abuse. It's a reminder of the fragility of childhood and the importance of compassion.
That's a good point, Isaac. The raw realism of her early life is shocking. It sets the stage for everything else, making her eventual triumphs all the more meaningful. And Bronte's willingness to critique religious hypocrisy through characters like Brocklehurst still feels bold. She doesn't reject faith, but she condemns its weaponization.
Absolutely. She differentiates between true piety and self-righteousness, just as she does in that amazing preface. That distinction is crucial.
And the way she explores social class and how it impacts agency and even identity, Jane's journey is one of upward mobility, not just socially, but psychologically, claiming her place in the world.
And thinking about those initial pages, where Jane is hiding with Bewick's History of British Birds, finding solace in the illustrations of desolate coasts and shipwrecks, it's a microcosm of her imaginative inner world. That act of retreating into books, finding meaning and escape, is so vital to her development. It's how she nurtures her spirit when her external reality is so harsh.
Yes, it's her intellectual sanctuary. She can explore worlds, even desolate ones, on her own terms. Those images of faraway, wild places, almost fantastical, fuel her imagination and give her a sense of scale beyond the claustrophobic confines of Gateshead. And then later, Gulliver's Travels. She sees Lilliput and Brobdingnag as real places she might one day visit. It really shows how she creates her own reality, her own hope from literature.
It's how she builds a defense mechanism, isn't it? She can't fight back physically, not always, but she can escape mentally. And in doing so, she cultivates an inner life that is richer and more complex than any of the Reeds could ever imagine. It's her strength, her secret weapon.
And it underscores the power of narrative, both for the character and for the reader. Brontë is, in a way, illustrating exactly what she praises in Thackeray: the ability to speak truth and to restore to rectitude the warped system of things. Jane's story is a kind of social regeneration through personal narrative.
And then when she's ill after the Red Room and Bessie tries to offer her the tart on the beautiful china plate in Gulliver's Travels, and Jane can't find any solace in them because her rocked nerves were now in such a state that no calm could soothe. It shows the limits of even her cherished escapes when she's utterly traumatized. It's a powerful moment of vulnerability, of that childhood innocence truly shattered.
It humanizes her even further. Even her strongest coping mechanisms fail her when she's pushed too far. But it also highlights the gradual healing process. Mr. Lloyd, Bessie's unexpected kindness, these things slowly bring her back.
And what about the ending? Those lines about St. John Rivers: "He is now at peace in a distant foreign land. Reader, I know he will one day reappear." The idea of him continuing his arduous, self-sacrificing path, juxtaposed against Jane's happiness, it's a brilliant final touch.
It's almost a statement about different paths to spiritual fulfillment. St. John finds it in absolute devotion and sacrifice, a very traditional Christian path. Jane finds it in love, partnership, and a life lived fully but ethically on earth. Both are forms of peace, but Jane's is a more grounded human one.
And it affirms her choice. She didn't take the easy road with Rochester, nor the duty-bound road with St. John. She carved out her own unique path, combining her intellectual and emotional needs.
It really emphasizes the autonomy she achieves. She's not defined by the men in her life, but by her own choices, her own journey. It's a very modern sensibility, woven into a classic narrative.
And let's not forget the humor, too. There are moments of wit, even in the darkness. Jane's sharp observations, her internal retorts. She's not just a victim.
She has a keen eye for the absurdities around her. Her description of John Reed, his dingy and unwholesome skin, his gluttony, it's quite vivid and slightly sarcastic.
Yes, she's not devoid of personality or even cynicism. Her inner thoughts about Mrs. Reed being a benefactress who is a disagreeable thing show that dry wit, even as a child. It keeps her from being a purely tragic figure.
It adds layers to her character, making her more relatable. She's not just enduring, she's also judging and forming opinions, even if she can't express them aloud. It's her silent rebellion.
And that's what makes her voice so compelling throughout the entire book. You're always rooting for her because you understand her struggles and appreciate her inner strength and quiet defiance. It's the voice of a survivor and ultimately a victor.
It makes you wonder how many other Jane Eyres there were in those times, whose stories never got told, whose voices were never heard. Her autobiography is, in a way, a stand-in for many.
That's a poignant thought, Isaac. This novel then becomes not just about one woman, but about the very possibility of a woman's voice, a woman's narrative, in a world that sought to silence it. The ending isn't just a personal triumph, it's a statement.
It's revolutionary in that sense. It asserts the validity of a woman's internal life, her feelings, her moral compass, and her right to shape her own destiny.
And it proves that a plain tale with few pretensions, as Brontë calls it in the preface, can be profound and world-changing.
Well, it's certainly made for a profound discussion today. Thank you both for delving into the depths of Jane Eyre with me. It's a book that truly rewards close reading and thoughtful consideration.
My pleasure, Aristo. Always a joy to unpack these stories with you both. It just makes me want to go back and read it again, finding even more layers.
Indeed. It's one of those books that sticks with you, whether you like it or not. The grit of it is undeniable.
Before we wrap up, I want to ask our listeners a question. Given Jane's journey, particularly her defiance of social norms and her ultimate search for equality and partnership, if Charlotte Brontë were writing Jane Eyre today, what do you think would be the biggest societal challenge Jane would face? Would it be class, gender, or something entirely new? Let us know in the comments.
And if you've enjoyed this journey through Thornfield and the Moors, make sure to hit that subscribe button. You don't want to miss our next deep dive. Consider it a delightful dispatch from the literary front, direct to your inbox or audio feed.
And if you don't, we'll send Mr. Brocklehurst to your house for a private sermon. You've been warned.
Excellent incentive, Isaac. Until next time, keep reading, keep thinking, and keep discussing. From the AAI Common Room, goodbye.